The baby's weak cry echoed to the marble hallway, fading under the sound of laughter and champagne upstairs. Imani, the 45-year-old black maid, stood frozen near the nursery door, clutching a damp towel in her trembling hands. She whispered to herself, "If I don't speak up now, this baby won't make it to Friday alive." Every night was the same. The wealthy owner, Brandon, threw another dinner party to impress investors, while his glamorous girlfriend, Ashley, pretended to be the perfect caretaker. Yet the child's ribs showed through his pale skin. His formula smelled strange, his eyes half open even when he slept. Imani had cleaned this mansion for 12 years, long enough to know when something felt evil behind polished walls. She'd seen how Ashley dismissed her with words dipped in poison. "Don't touch him with those rough hands." She'd learned to bow her head, to stay invisible, but tonight invisibility meant watching a baby die. She lifted the bottle left on the counter. The milk looked thin, almost transparent. Her heart raced. The doctor had said the boy was losing weight because of stress. But babies don't starve from stress. Imani's throat tightened as she remembered her own child who died years ago because no one believed a black mother could recognize danger. She wasn't about to let history repeat itself. Downstairs, music thumped. Crystal glasses clinked, and white smiles flashed under golden lights. Upstairs, silence screamed. Imani leaned over the crib, brushing a tear from the baby's cheek. "Hold on, little one," she whispered. "Someone finally sees you." Her reflection in the window caught her by surprise. A tired woman in a faded uniform, eyes filled with fury she'd hidden for too long. Tonight, the maid the world ignored would become the only person willing to fight. She tucked the bottle into her apron, locked the nursery door, and took one steady breath. "If they think a black maid can't save a millionaire's child," she muttered, "they're about to find out who I really am." If this already made your blood boil, hit like and subscribe right now, because stories like this are still happening, and the world needs to hear them. Morning sunlight slipped through the tall windows of the Sterling mansion, falling across polished marble floors and perfectly arranged flowers. Imani moved quietly between rooms, her hand steady, but her mind still replaying the baby's shallow breathing from a night before. Downstairs, Brandon Sterling, the Millionaire hotel owner, sat at the breakfast table scrolling through his tablet. "Ashley, remind the staff that William's diet is specialized," he said, barely looking up. "No one touches his formula except you." Ashley smiled, her voice sweet but sharp. "Of course, darling. Imani knows better than to meddle, don't you?" Imani nodded silently, eyes lowered. "Yes, ma'am." That was how things worked here. Smiles hiding commands, compliments wrapped in insults. Ashley never called her by name, just the maid. Brandon didn't even notice. To him, Imani was part of the background, like the furniture, invisible and reliable. But invisibility had its advantages. She saw what others didn't. The way Ashley slipped tiny glass vials into her purse when she thought no one was watching. The driver, Ryan, whispering near the kitchen door, passing her a folded note. The way the new nanny came and went too quickly, never staying long enough to bond with the baby. Imani kept mental notes of everything. Every lie, every strange errand, every fake smile. Later that afternoon, she changed the trash bin in the nursery and found 3 empty bottles hidden under the crib, their contents watery and sour. Her chest tightened. "This isn't milk," she whispered. "It's poison." She turned just as Ashley's heels clicked down the hallway. Imani quickly placed the bottles into her cleaning cart, pretending to dust. Ashley stopped by the door, her tone dripping with false kindness. "Oh, Imani, you're still here? Make sure the nursery is spotless. Mr. Sterling hates clutter." "Yes, ma'am," Imani replied, forcing a calm breath. When Ashley left, Imani's heart pounded so loud she could feel it in her throat. She glanced toward the baby's crib, his tiny chest rising unevenly, and knew she couldn't ignore it any longer. That night, while the mansion glowed with another dinner party, she stood by the window watching the guests arrive. Behind the laughter and designer dresses, she saw something darker, a plan unfolding that only she could stop. Imani didn't know how yet, but she knew one thing for certain. Tomorrow, She would find proof. The next morning began like every other. The clinking of dishes, the low hum of classical music, and the same suffocating politeness that filled the Sterling mansion. But Imani felt something different in the air, the kind of silence that comes before a storm. She was polishing the staircase railing when she heard a soft whimper echo from the nursery. It wasn't a normal baby's cry. It was weak, raspy, like his tiny lungs were begging for help. Her heart clenched. She rushed upstairs, pretending she'd forgotten her duster. The nursery door was cracked open. Inside, the baby lay motionless in his crib, skin pale, lips dry. On the table beside him sat another bottle, thin liquid half full and giving off a faint chemical smell. Ashley stood by the window, her tone bored. "He's just tired," she said without turning. "You can go, Imani. I'll take care of him." Imani froze. "Ma'am, he doesn't look well. Maybe we should call a doctor." Ashley turned slowly, her smile razor-sharp. "I am the one calling the doctor. And unless you want to lose your job, you'll stay out of it." Imani nodded, stepping back, but her mind was already racing. She waited until Ashley left the room, then snatched the bottle, wrapped in a napkin, and hid it deep inside her cleaning cart. Her hands shook as she whispered, "God, what are they doing to this child?" Downstairs, she overheard Ryan the driver speaking in hushed tones on his phone near the garage. "Yeah, tonight, everything will be done. She said the doctor will sign it herself." Imani's heart stopped for a moment. "Doctor? Sign what?" She moved closer, her footsteps silent. "He doesn't suspect a thing," Ryan continued. "And that maid, she's perfect. Been here forever. Dumb as a brick." Dumb. That word hit like a slap. Imani clenched her fists, forcing herself not to react. She turned away quietly, eyes burning. When the shift ended, she slipped out the back door, clutching her purse tight. She didn't go home. Instead, she went straight to the small neighborhood clinic where her cousin Ayana worked as a nurse. Ayana frowned as she examined the bottle Imani handed her. "This isn't formula," she said. "It's diluted milk mixed with sedatives. If this continues, that baby won't last a week." Imani's breath caught. "They're trying to kill him." "Then we need evidence," Ayana said firmly. "Real proof, not just your word." Imani nodded slowly, a fierce resolve building inside her. For 12 years, she'd swallowed every insult, every sneer, every reminder that she didn't belong. But this time, silence would mean murder. That night, she lay awake in her small apartment, the city noise humming through the walls. Her eyes burned with sleepless anger as she whispered into the dark, "Either I save that baby or I die trying. If this happened right in front of you, what would you do? Tell me in the comments. I read every one. And if you want justice as much as I do, hit subscribe." The next day, Imani arrived at the mansion before sunrise, her pulse steady but her purpose sharper than ever. She wasn't just a maid anymore. She was the only person standing between life and death. Her first move was quiet observation. She noticed Ashley and Ryan exchanging glances at breakfast, whispering every time Brandon left the room. Ashley played the role of the grieving stepmother flawlessly, feeding the baby just long enough for appearances, then locking his room when no one was watching. Imani pretended not to notice, but her phone, hidden in her apron pocket, was already recording. When Ashley left to meet her trainer, Imani hurried upstairs. She opened the nursery window to let in air, then took out her phone to photograph the evidence. The diluted bottles, the tiny vials marked with medical codes, the trash bin full of empty pills. Each click of the camera was another heartbeat of courage. Her hands trembled only once, when she found a syringe still half filled with clear liquid. The label read chloroquine, pediatric use under supervision. Imani's breath caught. She placed it into a plastic bag from her pocket, sealing it as carefully as a detective would seal a murder weapon. Her next stop was a garage. Ryan's car was open, the glove compartment overflowing with envelopes and receipts. She snapped photos of them all, then froze when she saw a motel keychain glinting under the light. Ashley plus Ryan equals partners in everything, she thought grimly. That night, She met Ayana again behind the clinic. Ayana tested one of the milk samples and nodded, face pale. Same sedatives. Stronger dose. Imani exhaled shakily. They're increasing it. It's happening tonight. Ayana grabbed her arm. Then you can't go back alone. I know someone, my cousin Malik. He's a detective. Good man. Black. He'll help you. Within an hour, Malik was on the phone. You have proof? He asked in a deep, calm voice. I have pictures, recordings, medicine, everything, Imani replied. Then I'll be there at 6 p.m. Stay quiet till I arrive. Let them act. We'll catch them in the act. Imani hung up and looked at Ayana. It's time, she said softly. They think I'm invisible. Tonight, I'll let them see me. As the mansion lights flickered on that evening, she put her phone on silent, placed it in her pocket, and whispered a prayer over the crib. The house smelled of perfume and lies. Ashley's voice echoed from the hall, sweet and deadly. It's the perfect night, Ryan. When he signs the will tomorrow, everything will be ours. Imani's hand closed around her phone. Tonight, justice would have a voice, hers. Evening shadows crept across the Sterling mansion as Imani stood by the window, pretending to dust while her phone recorded every sound. Her heart beat in rhythm with the ticking clock on the wall. Each tick was a countdown. At 5:45 p.m., the white luxury car pulled into the driveway. The headlights sliced through the dusk. The doctor had arrived. Dr. Chloe Mason, elegant in her heels and crisp lab coat, stepped out holding a small black medical bag. Her smile was polite, but her eyes were cold, the kind that measured life in profit. Imani turned away before anyone saw her expression. Ashley's laughter floated from the hallway. Doctor, thank you for coming so quickly. He's been restless all day. Poor baby. Restless, the same word she always used before locking the nursery door. Imani gripped the mop handle to steady herself. Through the mirror, she caught Ryan glancing toward her. He whispered to Ashley, You sure she won't cause trouble? Ashley smirked. Imani? She's perfect, loyal, quiet, and scared to death of losing her job. They laughed softly, not realizing every word was being captured on Imani's hidden recorder. Upstairs, the baby whimpered. The doctor's voice was calm but chilling. After the last dose, his body will slow down naturally. We'll call it respiratory failure. I'll sign the papers tonight. Imani's stomach twisted. She slipped into the pantry, texted a single message to Detective Malik. They're doing it now. Doctor inside. Please hurry. No reply, only the sound of her own breathing. She peeked through the crack in the door as Ashley handed the doctor a thick white envelope. Half now, half after it's done, Ashley whispered. Chloe nodded. I understand. Imani's hand shook, but she held her ground. Her instinct screamed to run upstairs and snatch the baby away, but Malik's voice echoed in her mind. Let them act. Catch them in the act. At 6:05, tires screeched quietly outside. A dark sedan stopped by the gate. Malik stepped out, suit pressed, badge tucked away, 2 plainclothes officers behind him. He gave a subtle nod toward the window. The signal was clear. Imani's heart soared with fragile relief. She whispered to herself, Hold on, little one. Help's here. Upstairs, the doctor's footsteps moved closer to the crib. Ashley's voice grew excited. Finally, peace in this house. And just as the needle's cap clicked open, the front door burst wide. The crash of the front door echoed through the mansion like thunder. Imani froze at the foot of the staircase, her heart racing as Detective Malik Johnson stepped inside, his badge flashing only long enough for the guards to back away. Nobody moves, he said calmly. Upstairs, chaos erupted. Ashley gasped. Who are you? What is the meaning of this? Malik's voice carried up the stairs. I'm here for the truth, and something tells me it's waiting in that nursery. Imani followed behind him, gripping her phone tight, recording every second. When they entered the room, DR. Chloe stood frozen, the syringe halfway to the baby's arm. The clear liquid inside glimmered under the soft night light. Malik's tone sharpened. Put the syringe down, doctor. Chloe's hand trembled. This is a misunderstanding. Imani stepped forward, She was about to inject him. I have everything on tape. Ashley turned pale. You think anyone will believe a maid? Imani didn't flinch this time. They'll believe the photos, the recordings, and the poison you ordered. She opened her phone, playing a recording. Ashley's own voice echoed through the room. After the last dose, we'll call it respiratory failure. Malik looked at his officers. You heard her. Take them both in. Ryan burst into the doorway, eyes wide. Wait, I didn't touch the baby. It was her idea. Ashley spun toward him. You coward. You were part of this too. Malik's men moved fast. Ryan pinned against the wall, Ashley handcuffed. The doctor surrendering quietly as her eyes filled with tears. The baby whimpered softly in his crib. Unaware that the nightmare was ending, Imani rushed forward and lifted him, holding his frail body close. You're safe now, sweetheart. Nobody's hurting you again. Malik turned to her. You just saved a life, and maybe a lot more. I'll make sure your name is heard. Ashley tried one last desperate line. You'll regret this. My lawyers. Imani interrupted calmly, her voice steady. You had everything. Money. Power. But you forgot what real strength looks like. Outside, red and blue lights splashed across the white mansion walls. Neighbors gathered in disbelief as the once untouchable millionaire's lover was led away in cuffs. The headlines were already writing themselves. Malik looked at Imani, smiling faintly. You did what most wouldn't dare. Imani glanced down at the baby in her arms. No, she said softly. I just did what a mother would do. 2 weeks later, the Sterling mansion no longer smelled of perfume and secrets. It smelled like life again, baby lotion, warm milk, and sunlight. Imani stood in the same nursery where she once whispered prayers in fear. Now, she folded tiny clothes with calm hands, the baby smiling up at her, cheeks full again. Brandon Sterling walked in, his expression humble and broken. I don't know how to thank you, he said quietly. If you hadn't been here, my son, his voice cracked. Imani shook her head. Just promise me you'll never ignore the people who care the most. They're usually the ones you overlook. He nodded, eyes wet. I promise. News of the scandal had spread across every channel. Racist model and corrupt doctor arrested for attempted murder of millionaire's child. Ashley's smiling photos now sat beside headlines of greed and betrayal. Dr. Chloe lost her license forever. Ryan turned state witness, his confession sealing the case. Detective Malik Johnson visited one afternoon, handing Imani a small envelope. For your courage, he said. The city wants to honor you. Imani smiled softly. I didn't do it for a medal. I did it because no one else would. The baby giggled in her arms, the sound of pure survival. At the ceremony a month later, Brandon stepped to the microphone. She was invisible to us for years, he said to the crowd. But when everyone looked away, she saw the truth. Because of her, my son and my soul were saved. Imani's heart swelled. For the first time, she wasn't just a maid. She was the miracle. If you believe this should never happen again, share this now. And to my USA, UK, and Canadian viewers, your voice is power. Use it.